place where danger waits, and it's bound to forsake me. So stupid minded, but I go crazy.
So let it be written, so let it be done.
If you see that flyer on the screen, just know that Heritage Hip Hop keeps his word when it talks about bringing hip hop royalty to the platform. Once again, welcome to the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast, where we introduce you to your future favorite artists today while celebrating those who not only laid the foundation for this culture you take part in, but celebrating those people who gave us an opportunity to show the world. Not only do we have something to talk about, but our representation of us is godly. My name is Karev. And before we go into today's exquisite show, hit the like button. Come in here, hit the like button. We need the algorithm to know that we exist. Share this video because we're going in today with somebody. This is a dream for me, whether y'all know it or not. And I want to give him the respect he deserves. Hit the like button, share, and if you like what you see, donate it, buy some merch. That's all I ask. Because at the end of the day, it's all about not only what the culture does for us, it's how we keep it official, how we keep it godly, which means represented, and not only that, how we are thankful for it to be able to pass it on. Before I get into the talking point, I just want to say this. Thank you to everybody who's rocked with me. Heritage Hip Hop has been around for 7 years. And as the platform has been built, it's been important for me to always give respect to those who have come on this platform and have done greatness. And I just thank you for that. And as we do celebrate greatness and achieving greatness, it's all about always giving homage to those people who came before you. Because if you do not give homage, not only will you fall victim to thinking you're the shit, you will be left in the shit that you think you are. And I don't want to ever be that person. My dream has always been to be the Ralph McDaniels of New Jersey, but has never been about not giving respect to those who helped pave the way for you to be where you are or who you are at that. And today's guest not only put his hands in music, television, he's also put his hands in podcasting and is a voice that talks about the future of hip hop while telling you where he's been. And it's the future because he's inciting you to be better than where you are and what you are right now. That's called inspiration. And if you know the Bible, it said when God's breath moved across the water, that was inspiration, which means the spirit moved. So now it is a pleasure of me to introduce this living spirit, this soul, to you. Please, sir, introduce yourself to the people.
Yo, what the deal? My name is T Money, formerly of the hit television show MTV Raps, WBLS, the original concept, which was one of the 5 original members, or 5 original groups rather, that was signed to Def Jam Recordings, which was LL Cool J, Junkyard Band, the Great Tila Rock, Beastie Boys, and original concept, which encompassed myself, my TV partner, Dr. Dre, and Easy G, and Rapper G. What's the deal, baby? Karaf, what's the deal, man?
Hey, man, I'm excited for this because this is a conversation that I needed to have. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody on your team, especially my friend. She go by Sliding Doors on YouTube. Wow, thank you, sis. I appreciate you for this.
That's my assistant Annette, man. She hooked this up. Annette, peace out to you. Thank you for all your hard work. We appreciate you at the T Money Podcast Joint. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm hosting my own podcast now called the T Money Podcast Joint, featuring Sierra Ross. We're on YouTube. You know, we only been on for a year and a half though, because you know you're a veteran podcaster than me. You know what I mean? 7 years. You talking real big talk over there. I feel you. But yeah, but we only been on for a year and a half, but we've had great guests on the show already. You know what I mean? We're about to launch our 40th episode, so we're doing all right.
Yo, congratulations. Yeah, one of my favorite episodes that you did was with Granddaddy IU. Rest in
Oh,
peace to Granddaddy IU. You know, and what I like about your show, well, let's get to your show, because that's kind of now. Let's go back and catch people up. I want to ask you a question that not many people ask, because I think when it comes to hip hop, everybody stays in the boroughs, but Long Island is one of the most pivotal pieces of land that actually shaped hip hop. Tell me about the Islander side of hip hop, and what does that region mean to you as you look at not only where it was, but what it means to the culture?
Well, it gets overlooked a lot, you know, even parts of Queens. Sometimes Queens even gets overlooked, you know, but keep in mind, we're all New York, you know, we're all family, right? We're all family. So, you know, and each borough, even the suburbs and Jersey, which we got a couple Jersey in, right? We've all contributed to this this culture we call hip hop culture in many ways and in unique ways, because we, you know, every borough is different. They have their own different nuances, right? You know, and they contributed to the culture differently, you know. And Long Island is not any different in that regard. You know, you know, many people give Long Island a bad rep because it's, you know, it's really popular now. Excuse me, I'm trying to adjust my physical, but it's really popular now to come from nothing. You know, that the Scarface kind of rise and fall narrative that everybody, you know, is, you know, thinking that that's the way, but sometimes it doesn't work that way. You know, great people come from, you know, great families and, you know, great upbringings as well, you know. And Long Island is not necessarily full of those, because we have different experiences. You know, a lot of times we have great community centers that taught African American studies and taught different cultures, and we actually went to school to do certain things, and then we still had, you know, impoverished neighborhoods, you know, that were actually populated with African Americans when I was young, you know. I remember growing up, you know, there was during the crack epidemic, the crack was running rampant through my neighborhood. You know what I mean? But you don't really look at Long Island in that way. But there was, you know, it was grimy. You know what I mean? You had people on one corner selling crack. I mean, this is in walking distance of my parents' home. There's one section, people smoking and selling crack. Then you had the next 2 blocks, and you had you know, women selling their bodies and prostitution. And down the block, you know, you had the street gangs. You know, because Long Island was, you know, in the 80s had tons of street gangs. You know what I mean? So all the energy that came from the city came from out here, and that included the hip hop culture. Because when I was younger, I used to go to several events in the city, man. I used to go listen to King Charles. I used to go listen to on the Disco Twins. I used to go listen to DJ Divine. I used to go listen to all of them. I used to bring back all the tapes from all the huge events. And I was back in the day when you had to literally bring a boom box and press play and record on a cassette. You know, that is like foreign to most young people now. You know, I mean, anybody born after 1970 won't even know anything about that. So I used to come back and just have tapes, and I used to sell my tapes in the neighborhood, or I would give them to friends, and that would help, you know, populate the neighborhood with all this new energy. And then different parts of Long Island too. Like Long Island is comprised of different areas that had nothing but Black culture and African American and Hispanic. The Hispanic community was coming up at that time as well. I mean, we're talking about Roosevelt. Now Roosevelt's populated at that time as I was coming up, and you know who's from Roosevelt? Like Dr. J, the Hall of Fame basketball player. Howard Stern, which didn't sound like nothing at the time, but he knows a lot about the African American culture because he went to all black high school, which was Roosevelt High School. Public Enemy, Flavor Flav, Chuck D, the Bomb Squad, Eddie Murphy and Charlie Murphy. They're all from Roosevelt, Hempstead, and out east where you got where EPMD is from, Brentwood and Amityville and Wyandotte, where Rakim is from. All those areas at the time were populated with African American culture. So those areas contributed to formulating different groups like the ones that I've just mentioned, Public Enemy, myself, and Dr. Dre. We also did a radio show at a Delphi University that was here that helped broadcast the music that we were creating. The radio station was WBAU in 90.3 FM in Garden City. And so many rap artists at the time came through that radio station. We're talking from the Fat Boys to LL Cool J to Run DMC, to the Beasties, to tons of people that came through that radio station. As a matter of fact, myself and Dre, out of this group of people, were the first ones to get a record deal on Def Jam. And we got it through that radio station because we did a radio station promo, which turned out to be the song called Knowledge Me that I penned for the original concept album. And was sampled by Master Ace not too long ago. As Born to Roll, that's my beat. So interesting.
No, that's dope. I mean, you gave me a lot. You gave me a lot to digest right there.
Uh-huh.
So let me flip what you said a different way, because the radio station seemed to birth a lot of the forward movement of your career.
Right.
Let's do it.
Nationally, and outside of Long Island, yes, it did, without question. I mean, myself and Dre were DJing in the city. We became pretty good in that neighborhood, and we branched out after that as a group called The Concept. And me and Dre would DJ for different promoters in New York City, and we were doing a radio show at the time. We were in college, I mean, me and Dre sacrificed a lot of things, man. I sacrificed going away to college to play football because that's like, I don't know if you know of like certain families that have, that specialize in certain things. Like my family specialized in playing football, or basketball, right? We were really good at that. So I strayed from that, even though I was good, I didn't gravitate towards it. I gravitated towards being part of this culture. Dre, his family, were scholars, very smart people. Dre had a full scholarship to Cornell. He didn't choose to go there. He wanted to DJ. He wanted to be part of this movement. He wanted to be part of the culture. So it became like this thing that we stayed here to grow from it and being part. And when Dre got to Adelphi University, he took a African American Studies class, and in that class was Bill Stephanie. For those of you who don't know who Bill Stephanie is, he was the president of Def Jam for many years, Def Jam Recordings. Harry Allen, the media assassin, he's the original hip hop photographer. That's what we call him, a media assassin, because all the photos he has were classics. And Chuck D, the voice of God from the group called Public Enemy. They were all in this African American Studies class, and they were already doing the radio station on a smaller scale. And they invited Dre and eventually myself to come up on Monday nights. Chuck D and the Bomb Squad, which includes Hank Shockley, Eric Vietnam Sadler, and Keith Shockley, had a studio in Hempstead, Long Island, called 510 South Franklin. I know I'm giving you a lot of stuff going on here, but I'm just giving you I'm just dropping all the history on you so you can pick from right there. You feel me? So they had the studio, and me and Dre would go there. And when we walked into place, now keep in mind something, we're all in our mid-20s maybe, right? 22, 23 maybe. And I walk in this place, and they got a whole office. Now, these are young men who, at this time, and this is unheard of, young men that have their own office. They were creating their own music. They were DJing parties. They had my man EJ the DJ, who was also sharing the office with them. It was just a big vibe, and I always felt like the movement was crazy because every week you would have fresh new faces coming up to that office, and Chuck would pen a logo for them, right? Because he's a graphic artist by trade. They'd produce songs for them, and they would literally create the names of these rappers. Like Busta Rhymes got his name from Chuck D. Chuck D created the group Leaders in New School and gave Busta his name. Busta will tell you that himself. So a lot of the things that happened were great experiences for us. And once we got our deal, we took it from there.
That's dope. Like I said, you're giving me a lot. That's a lot. So I'm going to get philosophical on you. I'm going to ask you this question. The barbershop is very synonymous with our community because that's what people got together and really build upon the issues of the community, their identity, and what they wanted to move forward. Was the radio station in that time the barbershop for the hip hop community, and did it help it move forward?
I wouldn't say it was the barbershop. That's a good analogy, but I don't know if it was the barbershop for the whole community. It was a selective few that were able to come to the station. But the ones that came to the station treated it like the barbershop. We used to sit at the radio station. I mean, the station on Monday nights went from 10 o'clock to 1 a.m. in the morning. If we weren't doing a party after it or going to eat at a White Castle or someplace, right, we would sit there and have snap sessions and talk about each other. And that's when I really learned how funny Flavor Flav was and how talented he was. If we had some of that on video, no one would ever believe it. It was unbelievable. Him and Dre used to go at it back to back. I mean, Flavor said some stuff about Dre that I to this day, I'm still trying to figure out what he thought of. How did he think of that? But we had a camaraderie amongst each other. We were very close at that time. And everybody contributed in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And there were other shows like Rusty J, the great Rusty J, who also had a show there. Night Nurse, she had a show there. She played reggae and dance hall, and everybody was really close, man. And it was Bill's show at the time. And then once Bill left to pursue the music industry, it became Dre's show, and Dre had the operating room. And then we really went bonkers then.
But I see you come from an era when hip hop was so hated because it was new, and it was young people from the community pushing the envelope of culture and identity forward, that it was seen as it's not going to last. Public enemies, let's be real. And it came from people who were not accepted. It wasn't until, think about this, we're talking about the 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until 2000 and the 2010s where the CEO from Disney, it was a woman at the time, she said, we have now come to a time of being a black and a gay is normal. Now we're talking about 30 years later. And I think with hip hop being so global now, people forget about the humble beginnings of, like you said, the boombox, the tape, the traveling to other states or blocks or cities to hear what's going on. In retrospect of that time, because I want to go, I'm still before your MTV Raps and things like that. In retrospect of that time, did you think the movement that you were a part of at Adelphi was revolutionary, or did you think it was something that was just changing your personal life and opening doors to you in another way?
I didn't have any idea that it was a revolutionary time. I didn't have that type of foresight or, you know, I didn't have any reflection at that time at 22, 23 to realize, you know, that it was a revolutionary movement. I just knew that it felt good because we were doing it anyway. But then it's sort of like, you know, the Rolling Stone gathering moss, right? And it just kept growing. So it just felt like it was the place for us to be because we've been doing it all our lives. But now we just have more friends, you know. We're not in Dre's basement anymore. We're not in my mother's basement. We're not, you know, we're not in a local watering hole DJing in the corner. You know, now we're doing colleges. You know, now we're doing album. You know, or actually not album, like, you know, concerts with artists that are performing. You know, and we're setting all these things up too. So it gave us, you know, which was funny. Unlike today, where you have to have a marketing person, you have to have a PR person, you have to have a manager. At that time, you had to learn how to do all that yourself. Myself, Chuck D, Hank Shockley, we all actually went out when we were doing an event for the radio station. Say, for instance, when we did an event with the Fat Boys. We had them perform at the school to promote the event. Due to the fact that there was no social media at the time, barely, you know, if you could find a computer, you'd be really lucky, right? We actually made poster boards like they did in the early 2000s in the city, and went around every town that had anybody black in it, hung up the poster boards in beauty salons and, you know, on the poles outside. And we did that whether it was raining, whether it was 80 degrees. We once did it in a snowstorm. We were out in Chuck's car in a snowstorm hanging up poster boards. It was insane, but we did it with no complaints. We did it out of love, and the place, it was packed. And we did another event the same way, right, out in Long Beach, Long Island, was where at the time nobody went to Long Beach to the community center, but it was packed when we did the event. Spectrum, who wound up being Spectrum City into Public Enemy, they were DJing at the time. But then the DJs then were Keith and Hank Shockley. But to your point, we just worked hard to try to do what we had to do at the time, and we didn't feel like it was some revolutionary movement because we didn't have that type of perspective of it. Not till later, when we look back on it now, we go, wow, look at all the great things that we've accomplished. You know, when you're in it, you don't have that type of perspective. You're rolling with the punches. And to that point, it kind of was a disservice to us too, because, you know, when we got our record deal, we weren't recording artists, even though myself and Dre did have production talent, but we were learning as we went along, you know. And our record deal got derailed because we weren't mentally prepared for it. We would have did a better job at that if we had that perspective that you're mentioning early on, but we didn't, you know.
But that's the point of the revolution, because if the revolution is a change, it had to come from somewhere and had to start from the bones. That's something I wanted to talk to you about, because you come from an era that I was born in. And that era was the streets regulated what it was. And when I say streets, y'all, I don't mean just crime and shit. When I say streets, I mean the people in the street regulated what exactly was to come and what was given out. And that was a certain integrity that television wanted to buy into, number one, because it was money for them. But the integrity of representing this one thing was so apparent that we had crossovers. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't be a crossover, don't do this. And now that's the goal, is to be able to sell. You had people in the street that were saying, this is the style of dress, this is how we talk. And then as the gates of media opened up, it seems the integrity became the standard to what was going to be defined as hip hop. So my question to you is this, because now we're going to fast forward a little bit. You started walking into the television realm with your MTV Raps. How did the integrity of who you are and the hip hop that you were building, how did that integrity get accepted and translated to the nation through your MTV Raps, in your opinion?
Because we were, well, let's speak first on the integrity part of it. There was nothing like Yo on TV Raps when it came out. Nothing like it. You know, we had the great Ralph McDaniels. You know, you had from there, you had, Ralph, you had Graffiti Rock, you had several, there were hundreds of local video programs across the country that never connected the dots. Yo MTV Raps connected the dots. When I say that, I say it connected Detroit to Philadelphia. It connected Philadelphia to New York City. It connected New York City to LA. All in one click of the remote control, right? So if you wanted to know anything that was culturally relevant to the hip hop community, right, you would watch our show. Now, and I'm telling you, this is the singular program, and I'm including the fabulous Fab Five Freddy, by the way, who started this whole thing on the weekends. But when you clicked on to our show, you saw Compton, you saw Luke in Miami. You visually saw these things and said, well, this is how they get down there. So now it's connecting hip hop regionally, right? So now the hip hop is looking like, oh, hip hop is everywhere. So it's mentally, figuratively, across the board, it's become something bigger just that quick, right? Integrity-wise, to your point, myself, Ed, and Dre were known in the business. Our integrity spoke for itself. More importantly, how we spoke, what we wore, how we dressed, how we spoke of the music helped solidify our integrity. We weren't like just some guys that they picked to wear the suit. We were actually doing this. So, excuse me. So when you ask about our integrity and the show's integrity and how it related to the music or the culture, we were already doing this, and we didn't get on. Like, you could always tell, when people are doing something that they are not comfortable with, more importantly, that they have no knowledge of. I can watch, sometimes I watch sports, right? Now listen, my Knicks are playing right now, right? The national news is killing them because they got killed by the Pacers the other day, right? And they start talking all kind of crazy stuff. This is I'm mentioning sports because it's relatable, right? So you can always tell when the national commentators don't know what they're talking about, because if they watch the Knicks all year, some of the things that they say they would never say. They would just never ever say those things, right? So it's the same way if we would have got on Yo on TV Raps at the time back then and started talking about the culture itself, we'd be totally unrelatable if we start talking crazy stuff about artists and not know what we were talking about. If Ed got on and started talking about Naughty by Nature, didn't know what he was talking about as it relates to Jersey and the culture, people would be like, no, this guy don't know what he's talking about. Me and Dre would have got on, with him, or Fab, and talk about parts of the country that we didn't know anything about. We would be looked upon as not official. How we dressed was official. What we talked about, the future of the culture. It was just something about us that made the world gravitate towards us and what we were doing. And due to the fact that we were very unique in our space, made it palatable for everybody.
It was. And I'm gonna keep it real with you, yo. This is something I want to let you know.
Okay.
Your part in the show, right, was very synonymous to where me and my people, my age group was. And let me tell you what I mean.
Okay.
Ed Lover had the dance, right?
Right.
Dr. Dre played the beats. He had the shades, right? He's the cool
Mhm.
dude, right?
Right.
Todd One was like the guy who would come in who was cool, but you was like, he here, that's my man. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You were more the comedian guy, though. You had the personality.
Right.
So you were the person a lot of my friends gravitated to. You know
Oh,
what I'm
that's
saying?
cool, man. I appreciate that, bro.
You had your characters, you know what I'm saying? Even when they did the countdown show, you know what I'm saying? We was like, oh, T Money on, you know what I'm saying? Like I know everybody talk about Ed and Dre, but you actually have a fan base that really gravitated to you. You know what I'm saying? And one of my favorite memories of you is watching Showtime at the Apollo. And I'm like, Ed and Dre got a song? Like, what? And then
we performed there. We performed there 3 times, actually. 3 times.
And the very first time was the one where Dre's mic went out and Ed had to give him the mic.
That's right.
Remember. Yeah. And I remember the song's going on. Then I hear, "Don't you get me out that job before the things drop." I was like, oh shit, T Money rap. You know what I'm saying? Like right there was important, and I'm talking about me personally. Right there was important. It was important for me personally because I got to see that when you are hip hop, when you're in front of the camera or behind the camera, you have to be well versed. You can't be a one-trick pony. If it's real to you, you're able to put your hands in different pots and be able to be a hell of a chef by adding flavor to whatever it is that you're cooking.
Let me tell you, that resonates throughout entertainment. Because you know how many actors sing or rap or have another skill that you probably never even knew about. You know, that resonates through entertainment. You have to be ambidextrous to a degree as it relates to your talent package, right? You have to be able to do more than one thing, even as an actor. So it's like we had to do that. I mean, Ed rapped as a kid, and Ed is a great freestyle rapper. I mean, off the top of his head, he's a bad boy, and people don't even know that, And original concept, I was the lead rapper of the group, right? So I've always rapped, and Ed did too, but people didn't really know that, So so you have to be multi-talented, man, to make it out of here. That ain't nothing new.
I was disappointed you didn't rap on the spring break episodes.
No, I didn't. I couldn't even get your son at spring break. I couldn't even get the mic, man. I wanted to get down, but I couldn't get the mic, son. I wanted to do that, but yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for mentioning that. But because MTV had the mics, and they were giving them to the artists that were performing, right? And I think I got a mic to say something as a host, but there was no music playing. I think that's what happened to me, and I was like, okay, I'm not tripping. I'm here to have a good time. Those girls in bikinis, I'm straight. You know what I mean? So it's
but Ed rap, Joe. I mean, look, my favorite MTV Spring Break is when they did the beach with the Brand New Heavies, and that's what Cypress Hill. And that was mind blowing for me because it showed that once again how the streets had the integrity as hip hop started to move, like you said, connecting regions. As hip hop started to move, you saw people that was like us from different regions. They could come together and rock a stage. Not only did they incite the crowd, they incited minds and integrity. I mean, think about it. I'm a kid, but I get to see Be Real, Dress, Trench, Salt and Pepper, and all these people together. Shout out to everybody. And it was like, yo, there's more of us in the world than we knew about.
Right.
To make a point, and not to go off topic, your impact in hip hop is so powerful that they try to diminish you. Do you know that?
Speak to me about that.
If you look at how people portray wrestling, the WWE right now, the WWE rocking wrestling and getting together with MTV is what blew MTV up. But people who really know the story knows that people didn't really care about MTV because they didn't play black people's videos. Michael Jackson was the first black person played. And then when your MTV Raps came to MTV, that's when the fan base really grew because the inner city started to make it bubble. It wasn't just wrestling, it was hip-hop culture. So they diminished Fab Five Freddy, they diminished you, they diminished Dre, they diminished Todd One, Shot Ted Demi. All of y'all get diminished because they act like, well, that was just another show. But while I mean, shout out to Kurt Loder and Downtown Julie Brown and all of them. Yeah, I know the names, so I'm really from that era, as you see.
Yes, you are. I can see that.
Even though we have those names, they always try to diminish what our culture and what hip hop did. Let me ask you this question, and then we're gonna go to commercial break. When you saw what your MTV Raps was doing as far as changing the perception of hip hop to the mainstream, and yet giving it a solidifying identity to the culture, the people in the culture, how did that affect you? And how did you change maybe your steps, your ways of how you did business or your character to always represent that thing and make sure you put yourself in position to be successful?
Well, from the beginning, my origins were to actually come on the show. So let me take it back just a second. So Dre and Ed were asked to audition for your own TV Raps, as you well know, right? I'm quite sure you know that due to the fact that you did so much research, right? So, and due to the fact that myself and Dre were, at the time, me and Dre were like a team, so like, we always were in the city. We hit record pools. We were doing parties all the time. We were in the same group, right? So it was a natural flow for me to continue that same energy, right? To go to the city with Dre every day, or we would take my car, or we would go do whatever. But now we're going to the studio to shoot the show, right? So the first few months, I'm going to the show. I'm not going to be, I know how they tell you, out of sight, out of mind. I was like, nah, that ain't happening. I'm rocking. You feel me? So, because I'm going to find my way, what my niche is to figure out how to make this happen. So fortunately, the shows started doing well, right? And I think this is even before, I believe it is. This is even before the show was put on the weekends. Or not on the weekends, I'm sorry, after school, right? So I was asked by Ted Demi and the guys to read the mail because we had so much mail coming in, fan mail. So, and they needed to do something with it to show the fans that we were appreciating their interest in the show. So my first audition was to be on the show as a mail person. So I get on the show, I help them read the mail, and then I think one day as a joke, that I wanted to pull off because I wanted everybody to, because it was, the show was kind of stiff at the time, right? We were doing the show, we were leading the videos, everybody was having a good time, but there was no comedic satire in the show. My thought as it relates to the show itself, to answer your question, I wanted to make the show a more rounded show. I didn't want our show to be, here is Brand Nubians and blah, 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 and, and just lead to videos. It needed to have some sort of, the show itself needed to be a show and not a video lead to, or talking heads just saying, okay, here's a video. How you guys doing today? I'm Ed, I'm Dre, I'm T-Money. Here's this video. Come back for the next video. A robot can do that, right? So I went to wardrobe. I brought some stuff from home, some stuff that I actually had. I had a 3-finger ring. I had an 8-track tape with the Afro thing on it, red, black, and green. I had these Superfly shoes with the platform like that thick, right? I had the pinstripes jeans, right? I put together this crazy outfit with an Afro and glasses. And I wrote on the back of my jacket, the real Michael Jackson. And I said the real one because I was dark skinned and I had an Afro. And so listen, nobody knew I was doing that. nobody. The only person that knew was the wardrobe person because I went to her. And I believe I got a few things from her, but I had the rings on. I think I got a cigarette from her. And this is something we don't have on tape either on film, but that day was the craziest day because that day sparked my MTV Raps career moving forward, not just me doing the mail. And I walked out with that outfit on, and I was dancing and talking like the real Michael J. Hey, what's up, brother? Everybody fell on the floor. Ed literally fell on the floor laughing in tears. And he was like, "Who you supposed to be?" And I said, "I'm the real Michael Jackson, son. Randy and them trying to play me, dog. And everybody was crying, laughing. And he said, "We gotta do this right now." So they ran and got Ted and them got the cameras ready, and we shot a segment doing the real Michael Jackson. And from that point on, I used to just come up with characters, and even Ed came up with characters. We got us in trouble when we made Barney a gangster. We made Barney a thugged out gangster. He had the chain on. Remember Barney, how popular Barney was with kids, right? Viacom got mad because we made Barney thugged out. You know what I mean? I was talking to him, Barney, what's up, kids? And we chilling. So he had to go. We just have fun with it. And I think when we did that, the show really took off. We just had fun with it. And in that climate, we needed to do something different. Even though we were on MTV, we had the most views. It's not necessarily what you do to get in the building, it's what you do to stay in the building, correct? So that was my forethought as it relates to our show and how we could have made it different and made it bigger than what, that's what my mind was.
Hey,
and it worked, it worked. So,
yeah, shout out to you and your mom because we're still talking about it to this day, and people are trying to remake your MTV Raps, and it don't have quite the magic that it had when it was the original show. But everybody, how y'all like the interview so far? Make sure y'all hitting that like button. Shout out to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter watching the show. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back after this.
Hey, Redman is in the building, of course. Jersey's finest, all about them bars, marijuana smoker. Hey, PSA announcement. I need everybody go support. That's right, support my fucking state, my city. Heritage Hip Hop, a New Jersey media source that celebrates New Jersey hip hop worldwide. Facts. And we are celebrating our legends right here, Jersey, baby. Please subscribe to Heritage Hip Hop on social media. That is Heritage Hip Hop on social media. Jersey, you know I love you. Jersey, you know we got bars and we got music and we got legends all day. And if you believe in Jersey and you love Jersey like I do, support that Heritage Hip Hop on all social media platforms. This is Redman and I approve this message.
Shout out to the OG Redman for the shout out, and shout out to everybody out there watching. As we celebrate our hip hop legends, if you go to heritagehiphop.com, just know we are a sponsor now for Super 7. So if you see figures like KRS-One or Ghostface Killer or DMX or other figures, you could go through heritagehiphop.com and get a figure to celebrate our hip hop culture. And this month we're featuring Can It Be Also Simple Ghostface Killer. So if you like figures, check us out and get those figures. Salute to y'all. All right. So let's continue because there's certain things I want to really ask you that will really direct the rest of this interview. Thank you for all the knowledge too, because you gave me something to think about that I want to put into context when it comes to heritage hip hop. But you said that as a well-rounded person in the industry, right? Everybody has to have their hands in things. You've been in movies. Shout out to Who's the Man. Shout out to Juice. You've been on stage. You've rocked stages. You know what I'm saying? You've done music videos. You've been behind the boards and in front of the camera. I want to ask you from your OG perspective. As hip hop has evolved, the media has changed. Is the power of the podcast the most powerful platform when it comes to the media that hip hop has had, in your opinion?
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no to that. This is why I'm gonna tell you no. I'm gonna remix your question a little bit as it relates to your question. This is my answer. What the podcast has done for hip hop and hip hop artists and just regular people gives them a voice in their pocket. It's sort of like the difference between having a Walkman and having 30,000 songs on a iPad. You're able to now you can control your own narrative. You have a voice. You have platforms like YouTube, Facebook, IG. You know, and you're able to do that. I hope you're not seeing I'm doing this interview, and the band keeps dropping down. So I hope you're not actually able to record that part. So we'll see what happens. But to answer your question, I think it's important to be able to control your own narrative nowadays. A great publicist, I'm not going to mention his name, told me back in the 90s, he said, T-Money, you have to write your own story. Because if you don't write your own story, after a while, somebody else will write it for you, and it will not be what you anticipate it to be. It will be incorrect up and down, right? So I think what podcasts do now is for people in entertainment and people who are not in entertainment. I mean, if you're doing political podcasts, you're doing a cooking podcast, whatever podcast you do, it gives you a platform to speak your truth, to show the world who you are. Never before in the history of media has anyone been able to just go, okay, boom, I can start a show of my own. You notice that I told you earlier, I'll defer to Ed and Dre, had to audition for a show, right? To get picked. Like, you're going to do a movie, you have to get picked. No, you pick yourself here. You build it, you logo it, you business it, right? You pick the people you want to work with, you shoot it. You can shoot it with an iPhone. You can shoot the shit with an iPhone, bro. Proper lighting. You can be really creative and do whatever you want to do, and you can put it where you want to. And if it sticks to the wall, if people like it, look at it, you won. So then your only mission is to have variety and to be consistent, right? So never before in entertainment have we've been able to just do that whenever we want to, So that gives each individual some power. You might not necessarily have 10 million followers, right? But it gives you a sense of having the opportunity to get someone to listen to you. You have a voice out there. You're not sitting here hoping to get on something so somebody can hear you one time. You can do it as many times as you want to. You have the flexibility to do whatever is necessary. And that's power. That's power. That's power. You can have 1 or 100,000, subscribers. It doesn't matter. You have the power to be able to do something with that vehicle, That changed the game. Podcasts.
I think so too.
That's why so many people have it. You hear people go, "Oh, everybody got a podcast," and what does that mean? Everybody has a podcast. Everybody's supposed to have one. So, everybody should have one, just like everybody has an iPhone, right, or Samsung. Everybody has one. Yeah, you're supposed to have one. If you're somebody of some notoriety, you should have one. If you're not somebody of notoriety, you better have one. Because if you don't have one, you have nothing. You understand what I'm saying? Even if you were on, say for instance, you're on the WB or some network, Viacom network, whatever, and you're a star. If you don't have a podcast, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. Because when you're on that show, you're speaking their words. When you're on your podcast, you're speaking your words. Athletes have podcasts. Stars of movies and television have podcasts. Rappers have them. If you're a rapper out there, you don't have a podcast, you're a loser. You're losing. Because you can shoot it from anywhere. You can shoot it from your tour bus. Anywhere. And then when you monetize it, forget it. You're off to the races. So it's about having power. It's about power. And having a voice for yourself. For yourself. To speak on what you want to speak on. And that changed the game immensely.
I'm glad you put that out there because check this out. You know the famous story of Jack and the Beanstalk, correct?
Who doesn't?
But did you know there's a version of that story where Jack was a woman?
No.
Jacqueline and the Beanstalk. And though the premise of the story is the same, it follows the traditional thought that history is written by the winners. Because in that story, Jack was the villain, the girl was the villain, and she killed the giants. That's why there's no giants. So the giants didn't get to tell their story, and because it was a woman, they changed it to be a man, so that they didn't. The giants that were left didn't feel shamed. Hey, that's the story, y'all. I didn't write it.
Right.
And we always hear that history is written by the winners, and the truth dies with those who suffer. If you look at the power of the podcast or the video or the cell phone now, when we talk about Adelphi University and Spectrum City and the things that y'all did, how much more powerful, in your opinion, would it have been if you had these to capture the moments than just the stories?
Oh, man. Everything would change. Everything as it relates to the hip-hop culture would be different. And let me put it to you this way. If we had cell phones back then to take images and video, the term "you're not relevant" would never exist. Because these guys would have continued to be relevant. And I don't want to say these guys, I'm including myself in that. All of us would have continued to be relevant throughout the history of the business. What differentiates athletes, right, their history from hip hop artists or hip hop people in the hip hop culture?
Nothing.
Visuals. You can go right now and look and watch Babe Ruth hit a home run. Look at his career stats, right? Go to some auction and look at his jersey, right? His history is extremely documented. It is all factual, right? Visuals are what transcend that. Like if Babe Ruth had never had visuals, it would only be some sort of myth or legend. Like parts of Bo Jackson's life. They're not videoed. It's all myth and legend. But he has enough video so people can go, oh, this is probably real, right? If hip-hop artists had tons of behind-the-scenes video because they were able to shoot it themselves, they could write their own story. Their story would have never been rewritten or faded out. You would know about a Super Level C and Casanova Run. You would know a lot more about Schoolie D. You would know a lot more about Special Ed. You would know a lot more about these artists because you would have a visual perspective of it, right? So technology has changed that. So now everybody has a cell phone, and hip hop artists of those eras that didn't have the phone are doing. What are they doing now? They're trying to catch up, right? That's why, again, to my previous point, having a podcast helps that, right? Very important to understand that concept, because if we all have visuals, you know, and not only will it help us stay relevant all this time, it would help the corporate dollar as it relates to hip hop too. Because what's the big thing when all these artists want to do anything like documentaries or films or whatever? The first thing all these platforms want to know is, do you have footage? They would have tons of it. Can you imagine what kind of footage Melly Mel and the Furious Five would have? They would have had the biggest documentary in the world.
The
They would have
message,
stuff they would have stuff in the road and all this other stuff. Now, I'm not saying that they don't have it, but if they had they had cell phones with cameras, that's a scary thought. That in itself is a scary thought.
Is it though? Because think about this.
Well, not in a negative way. I'm saying not in a negative way. I'm saying like in a positive way. Like, whoa, like that'll be incredible.
More of our stories will be told from firsthand perspective.
That's touche. That is correct.
And that's what kind of gets me so angry about how people label hip hop culture today, because people have taken hip hop culture and made it rapper only, and we don't. And there's so much more to the culture than the rapper only. And then if you want to keep it rapper only, because I could play that game with y'all too. Mm-hmm. Every generation has a teenager that moves it forward. And it seems like people always try to cut the youth out or make the youth fight the elders, which is Rehoboamism. For those of y'all who don't know who Rehoboam is, read your Bible. Solomon's son became king and turned the elders against the youth, and then the kingdom split, Judah and Israel. I could do history on that. But that Rehoboamism is what we fight in hip hop. Think about this. How old was Special Ed when he came out and he changed the game? How old was LL Cool J or Nas when they came out and changed the game? If you want to go to the South, Lil Wayne was out since he was 12, right? I mean, it's always a youth movement that pushes something forward. Look at today, in today's hip hop, look at La Russell in the West Coast. He's used this technology to make his own fan base, like not on the streaming services, and got sponsorship and everything, and then went to streaming. So there are people out there who are doing the movement and living the culture without the necessary need to be accepted by the mainstream that really doesn't love our culture. They just use it.
Right.
And your expert opinion, I want to ask you this. Is there something that you've seen in hip hop that needs to be talked about that people don't talk about enough?
That's a loaded question, but yeah, there's tons of things that, right now, especially, that should be talked about, but they don't talk about enough. But in all seriousness, I tend to believe, and I firmly believe, and I guess I kind of could take a little piece of what I just made mention to, and and I don't look at it like, because I feel that I'm part of that era that I'm making the statement, but I can only speak on what I truly know, actual factuals. The hip hop culture, right, as a whole needs to stay together as a whole. It's too divided. And I'm not just speaking about rappers. I'm saying in general, it's just too divided across the board. Because you have divisions. You have people who do trap. You have all these other artists that do X, Y, and Z, right? Especially the young artists. They don't have a lot of them don't have the reverence for the old school artists that they should. And I'm not saying that anybody has to actually bow down to a Melly Mel or bow down to a KRS or a Slick Rick or LL for that matter. Probably one of the greatest of all time. That's why they call him the GOAT. But you have to have some sort of reverence, because if it wasn't for them, trap music would never be accepted. It would just never work, because it would not work because it would have no platform to leap from. You understand? It would never happen. Other forms of new hip hop would never work. Female rappers who are dominating the game right now would never happen if it wasn't for people like MC Shan and all these old school rappers who paved the way for them. So I tend to believe that a lot of the old school rappers they get judged, and they get treated like they're no longer relevant, so there's no need for you to pay any attention to them. because it's always based on someone's bank account. You know, it's not always based on how much money that person is making at the moment. It's based on what they've done, you know, indirectly to help you be the person you are. You know, if it wasn't for people like that, you would never be who you are. You think you just would have came here and been a rapper? You wouldn't even have the thought in your mind to be a rapper, because keep in mind, to go back to what me and you were talking about earlier, me and Dre used to DJ schools, and the people would literally come up to me and say to me, and I quote, "Don't play that rap shit. We don't want to hear that Run DMC. You play the house music, you play the R&B. That's what we want to hear." You know, and my eyebrow would go like, just like, what are you talking about? You know, it was so disrespectful. And I'm talking 83, Sucker MCs, right? 86, My Adidas. This is a 3-4 year span, easy. I don't want to hear that rap music in my club. We couldn't get booked at a club if we were playing rap music. Couldn't get booked at the club. So just like you celebrate, and keep in mind something, I know people are gonna say something. I don't want anybody to get angry, but just like you celebrate pioneers in all areas of entertainment, political movement, everything else, you need to celebrate the pioneers of this music, because if it wasn't for them, and I'm talking about fashion, I'm talking about all the 5 elements, not just rap music. You have to celebrate them. And when I say celebrate them, you have to pay homage to them. You have to include them in what you're doing currently. You have to, if you're going to sit there and say that they're not relevant, what are you doing to make them relevant? What is your role in trying to build this culture instead of tearing it down? You know, because everybody loves this narrative, you know, like I said earlier, you know, the rise and fall narrative, that people make fun of the people going down that they lifted up to get destroyed because they want to be the next person. You can't do that. You got to think in terms of the hip hop's longevity. And, you know, they're the basis for your longevity. You know, they're not building museums and all this other stuff because they don't want longevity. They want these people to live, you know, for eternity. Correct?
Correct. That's the goal. The legacy. Right. The legacies are the goal.
Right.
So then let's talk about your legacy, because the T Money podcast, number one, shout out to you for the podcast. I really enjoy the podcast. Like I said, that Granddaddy IU episode really was dope, because
salute to Granddaddy IU, man. I mean, he died. He passed away a few days after he did our show. He came out. I mean, let me tell you, he came out like we usually shoot 3 guests, you know, minimum of 2 guests a show. You know, it's hard to book guests sometimes, but back then we were really shooting 3 guests at a time. And I needed one more guest. And somebody, I'm not too sure who it was, but somebody canceled on me, and I called him last minute. He took the train from Long Island to New York City to come to do my show. You know, so to me, I felt like, man, that was really cool, man. You know, I'm not paying you a dime. You just came out of respect for me, and you know, and he had a great show. I mean, you know, to your point, IU was a really funny guy, man. He had a great show, very informative. Some of the stuff he told me, I was like, wow, I never knew that. You know, so yeah, man. I mean, and I appreciated him for that. You know, salute to you, IU, man. You know, rest in peace.
Yeah, salute to Granddaddy IU. Shout out to John Jiggs, one of his artists. Me and Jiggs got a good relationship, and I always tell him to big him up on the show so people will know, as we celebrate our hip hop heroes who laid the foundation, Granddaddy IU needs to be respected too. Something New from the Granddaddy, the classic, by the way, y'all. If y'all don't know that song, but that's a single. Y'all could. His catalog is dope, but as far as the T Money podcast, right? Most people who don't understand media or podcasts do a podcast just to be heard. Why did you start your podcast, and what makes your stand on your square? Hold up, y'all. Y'all know this is Heritage Hip Hop. We got segments. We ain't do one yet. Stand on your square. Tell the people about the T Money podcast and why they need to be checking for the T Money podcast and showing you that love. Go ahead.
Yo, this is T Money. Check out the T Money podcast joint featuring my girl Sierra Ross on YouTube. We totally support hip hop through and through, and we give mad love and respect to the golden era of hip hop, man, because it's necessary. So check it out because we banging. Trust me, I'm telling you, man. We on our 40th show. This is season 4 coming up, and holler at me, man. Subscribe, do your thing, man. Because this is what's popping, man. We doing our thing right now. One love to you, a peace, love, and hair grease. All right.
That's all good, but we ain't done. Nah. Because look, one thing about your show that I really like is you give the guests time to really project and speak instead of commanding the interview. Because sometimes people get on the show and they don't have the direction, and you have to lead them, and you lead them into freedom and expression.
Yeah, sometimes being a good host, you don't necessarily have to be overbearing or ask a million questions. Like DMC, for instance. Like I didn't have to ask him too many questions. Once I let him in, he just went. And his interview, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, check out King DMC, Run DMC. He's on the podcast. I forgot what episode it is, but he was amazing. Some of the stuff he told me I didn't know. Like, what's so dope to me? Honestly, I enjoy doing the podcast because it's about learning. It's a learning experience, even for me. Like some of the stuff DMC told me about how he was in his basement and he went to Run's house and how Run DMC formulated early before Jam Master Jay. I didn't know a lot of that stuff, and it was eye opening to me, because I revere Run DMC. I mean, honestly, as one of the greatest rap groups ever in the history of rap music. I mean, it's only, to me, it's a short list. It's Public Enemy.
Whoa, don't do that yet. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay.
That's another segment. Don't do that yet.
All right, no problem. I'll leave that alone right now. That's my list.
But I'm glad you said that because, like you said, everybody should have one. But now let's go back to your MTV Raps. Now let's go back to your original concept group. When you do something, put your personality into it and make it great. Tretch told me, whenever you do something, make it a movie. Like make your last performance is your best. Make sure people remember you. And I'm kind of getting sidetracked because I'm thinking about everything all at one time. Because I don't have your catalog. I don't have your album for the original concept. All I do remember is Back Up Off Me. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what I saw. But not only that, but from the television and you putting your personality into the show to make it big, to having a podcast where people may know your name, but the star of the show is the information, that's hard, and it's also a skill. How has podcasting showed you a different side of you that you now appreciate more, and when you reflect on your time in the game, which it hasn't ended, thank God, but when you reflect on it, it really makes you feel like you're in a power position, not just in a position to create a power?
Well, I learned, so when you work with my former partners, that's another reason why I did comedic skits and I didn't try to be the third host at the beginning, because getting a word in edgewise between those two guys is almost impossible. Like to try to talk between Ed and Dre is almost impossible. But I learned actually when I was in college, because I actually studied film and television in college. I learned about hosting. I learned about TV presence. I learned about squaring, blocking, stuff like that. And being on television for so long, I learned a little about how to host the show, the kind of questions to ask. I was never really foreign to that, but doing it yourself writing your own questions, formulating your own questions, putting together your own show, getting the right guest, showed me that I was able to do that, and I learned a lot from that. So I'm very pleased to this point. I'm not totally satisfied, but I'm very pleased at my progress as it relates to that. Because believe it or not, after being on TV for 6 years, I still have a lot to learn myself. And I think I spoke to Ed not too long ago, not about this in particular, but I told him even, because he does radio here in New York City, the block. He does that every day, and he has his own podcast, the Come On Son podcast, which is amazing in itself. I mean, he's done over 200 shows. So I think I mentioned to him when I was with him not too long ago. I told him, I said, you've gotten very good at doing what you do. He's not the same Ed Lover that you would see on your MTV Raps as far as having presence with the guests, and he was good then because he asked the appropriate questions. And keep in mind something, we wrote everything that we did on that show. We picked the guest, we picked the videos. They gave us a teleprompter to read questions, but we didn't read those questions. We asked our own questions. We did our own thing. We did all the comedic skits. We did all that. That's a whole nother conversation. We'll get to that maybe in part 2 of this, right? But yeah. So I mentioned to him that he's gotten much better at doing what he does, and that made me think that I could do the same. It made me give me inspiration to actually be better at hosting, be better at my enunciation, how to articulate my thoughts, how to get out of my guests what I was interested in getting out of them, as it relates to interviewing them, how to have presence in the room when I'm speaking, when you're doing anything in entertainment, you have to do your best. I mean, sometimes you fail, but you have to do your best to try to be, you're always on stage. So you have to treat it like you're always on stage. You have to have presence. You have to know, but you have to first understand that concept. Once you do that, then, full steam ahead for you, So I've learned how to use these skills to have a better show. And I took on doing a podcast because, again, I wanted to have a voice. I didn't want to do a podcast for years. I was asked to do a podcast for quite some time, and I did a podcast of my friends once as an interviewee, right? And then I went on a run. I don't know how many podcasts I did. I was interviewed. I had to be interviewed like 30 times, right? Over the course of a year or so, right? And I said, I'm gonna do my own show. And that's when I started putting together my own show. Ed put me onto a guy that helped me very much to shoot the show, and then that guy put me onto the studio that we use, and and it seemed like the good thing to do, just like the energy that I had from the very beginning, right? It just seemed good. Things moved well. There was no BS, right? And we eventually got the show launched, and we launched it. IU was one of our first guests. I think IU was our first guest, right? Yeah, he was our first guest. So we did well. So far, we're doing okay.
No, you're doing great. Salute to you. But we got to close this up, ladies and gentlemen, because as you know, family calls and you can't be here all night. I would love to. I could say the Bible says when you find a wise man, you wear out his doorstep.
Oh, fact.
I will be in front of your doorstep asking questions. So I have a new game I made for Heritage Hip Hop just for you. It's called Impressions. And Impressions is I'll say a name or something. You say the first thing that comes to mind. Just recollection.
Oh, this is scary. Hold on a second. Do I really want to do this?
Oh, yes.
Hold on.
Yes,
Hold on, wait a minute. Yes. Let me get this together. All right, go ahead.
You ready?
Right.
Raising Hell Tour.
DMC. Presence. His presence. DMC.
Okay. Second question. Second impression. The Jungle Brothers.
Oh, real dope, bro. Jungle Brothers is dope. That's all. That's the only thing that comes to my mind is how dope they are. Of course.
This is from my childhood. I give it to you. The MTV Rap cards.
How I should have had more than one card. I only had one. I had one card. My card was special. You had to find it in like one of those things in one of those boxes. I had one card in the series, which sucked. You know, wish I had more than one card.
Shout out to my collectible store because you could buy the whole set in one box right now. You
know
yeah,
you can.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. On side note, I was cleaning out my brother's house, and we found my old MTV Rap cards. So I have set the Sonic and De La Soul. I found a Vanilla Ice card. I was like, damn, that's crazy.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing. Did they make new cards or all those just cards that nobody bought back then? I don't know.
Yeah, the new cards are bigger. They're just like this big now.
They're new cards. Okay, that's cool.
So my next impression, Long Island.
Home.
Okay. The boombox.
JVC, the 10-inch speaker. That's the real boombox. The 10-inch speaker boombox JVC joint. That's the official boom. Yo, dog. When I got that, I was like, I'm in there. That was it.
Okay. Do the Right Thing, the movie.
Radio Raheem. Love. Hate.
Yeah.
My favorite scene.
You have lived through certain parts of hip hop that are very celebrated and are very abashed as well. And I want to ask you this part of the impressions. Yusef Hawkins.
Well, you asked, what's the question?
What's the impression as you look back on it now? Impressions.
Yusef Hawkins, sadness.
Because it seems hip hop never gets away from the stories, but people forget those stories existed.
No, I don't forget any of that because I lived it. Yusef Hawkins is tragic. Maybe I should say that. That's my first impression.
Okay. Biggie and Pac beef.
Unnecessary.
Tim Dog versus the West Coast.
Balls. But Tim Dog to do what he did at the time took a set of balls. Rest in peace to Tim Dog.
Facts. See, I do my hate research, y'all. I'm just not asking some bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
So,
how about this? Let me ask you something from a different coast that was impactful in hip hop. Ice-T and the Rhyme Syndicate. What's your impression of that?
Ice-T was dope. Ice-T was dope, bro. As a rapper, as an artist, I respect the hell out of Ice-T, aka Tracy, is my man. I respect the hell out of him as a hip hop figure. You know, he's one of the few who transcended the music. You know, he became an actor. You know, I mean, there's a handful of them. I mean, you're talking Latifah, you're talking Will Smith, you're talking LL Cool J, Mos Def. You know, I mean, he was just dope, man. And then the fact that he didn't just become a rapper, he became a rapper with a rock and roll band. Ice-T's always been different. He was, I mean, how cool is that, right? Everybody has to find their lane somewhere, and Ice-T did a great job of that. He's still doing it, actually. Salute to him.
I brought him up specifically because when we talk about GOATs, nobody says Ice-T.
Oh,
Ice-T needs that respect. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel personally.
You gotta say that about Ice, man. Ice is it. That's the man. Period.
I got two more impressions and then we're gonna phase off. The microphone.
Comfortable with the microphone.
Last one, the podcast.
Happiness.
The podcast brings you happiness. That's dope.
Yeah, my podcast brings me nothing but happiness because it's my life now. So I totally enjoy the guests. I totally enjoy putting the show together. I enjoy interviewing people, you know, and you know, I don't want to say it keeps me relevant, but at the same time, it just makes me happy about the culture itself. And I what I truly enjoy about it is I give a voice also, not to myself. I give a voice to people who don't necessarily have a voice. People from the culture who are forgotten about, you know, and that makes me feel good. You know, that was my whole objective for having the podcast in the first place, to give people of the culture a voice who really don't get a voice anymore. You know, there's so many people that are forgotten about. It's unfathomable. You know, and I interviewed them first. I can't wait to have people like Schoolie D or Super Level C, Casanova Rudd. I mean, people like that on my podcast. That's the kind of people I'm interested in interviewing. You know, Antoinette. You know, Sweet Tea, that kind of deal. Because you know, not that no one remembers them or they don't get a voice, but they're not mainstream anymore. You know, and I always, and I look at that too. You know what this whole thing started from? To be quite honest with you, I was searching. Not only did I do that show that inspired me to do my podcast, and we can talk about this in closing, but I was listening to so many hip hop artists like Kane, Redman, who you did with the commercial. Salute to him. That guy. Forget about it. I dare any new artist to try to out rap him, because he'll be, you know, that'll be like fricassee. He'll flambe them. You know what I mean? Redman's a problem. But anyway, back to my point. They were making so many songs. He's making new songs. Redman, Kane, even Sonic. All these groups are making new songs. Where do you hear them? You hear them on Spotify because you have to buy them, or Apple Music. But other than that, where do you hear them for free? We have yet to grow to the point in my show to be able to play the music, but we're going to be doing that. And I want to be able to support artists from that era and other artists too that never even had hit records that people like, but don't have a place to listen to their songs, you know? And that's what inspired me to actually do my show.
God bless you, bro. And I'm glad that you do your show. But like I said, this is not over, because the last part of the show, I made that for you. That was for you. That was my gift to you.
Okay.
But the last part of the show is called the Rapid Fire Questions. This is a game where not only do we show the depth of knowledge of the hip hop culture by you, but how much you appreciate it with quick answer questions, not yes or no questions, just not yes or no answers. But you know, we try to show people that you really the shit, and we're gonna celebrate you. You ready to go?
Okay, I'm ready.
What's the best hip hop beat ever made? Meaning, if that person didn't have that beat, that would have been your first single and you would have rapped on it.
That's disgusting. This can't be rapid fire. This can't be
rapid fire. Rapid fire. Let's go.
I can't say that. Okay, let me tell you. The best beat that I ever heard, and this is marginal. The best beat that I ever heard is probably it's probably Public Enemy #1. Yeah.
Okay. That's dope. You taking it back to the first album. Okay, that's dope.
Yeah, man. That beat was near and dear to my heart, so I have to say that beat. You know, I could say a lot of beats, but I'll say that one. You know.
Okay. Next question. Your MTV Raps with Luther Campbell. My question to you is, how dope was Luke, and what does hip hop not understand about him that makes him a GOAT when it comes to the culture?
Luke had his own lane. Just like I had made mention to before, Luke had his own lane. You know, my father used to tell me and Dre, we used to DJ in my parents' basement. So, you know, we're trying to make all these things happen. You know, we DJing, we getting all these records. You know, me and Dre used to steal half of them, right? Before we got record pools giving us music, right? And labels. So he came downstairs and said to us, you know, you guys need to have go-go dances. Now we're young. We're like, what the hell are you talking about? You said you guys used to have some go-go dances up there, that the girls, you DJ and the girls, and we brushed it off. Many years later, Luke had go-go dances. So my father's idea was genius. We should have took advantage of that. But Luke had his own lane. So no one had that lane with the women and the dance music because Luke's music was dance music, but it was Southern dance music. Before Southern dance music even hit the scene, it was Luke. So he had his own lane. So that's what made him the GOAT of his own lane. And to this day, to be honest with you, no one's done it better than him.
Facts.
Right.
All right. Rapid fire question. Did Dr. Dre, your man's, start booty-based music?
No. Myself and Dr. Dre started bass music. Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
Because you have been, Dre has been credited with the beginning of that sound on many podcasts and in a book that came out.
That's very true, because I can tell you how it happened, but I don't know. We have a rapid fire question.
I want to hear that one. No. I want to hear that one.
Well, we were in Dre's basement, and Dre got the 808 drum machine.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were experimenting with it, and he turned the volume all the way up on the bass, and the bass would go boom. And that was the first time you heard that kind of low frequency bass coming out of a drum machine, right? So we took it to the studio and we made our music with that. We made Knowledge Me with that, and then it miraculously somehow ended up on Together Forever and some of the Beastie Boys songs, because we used the same studio, and Rick Rubin produced all the songs that I'm making mention to. And from there, Luke used that rolling 808 drum machine to create the songs that he was making. And that's how it transcended.
Love it. Rapid fire. What's more powerful in hip hop, the microphone or the camera?
The microphone will always be more powerful than the camera. The spoken word is the most powerful thing in the universe. The spoken word. Right.
What's the most important instrument in hip hop?
The most important instrument in hip hop? In hip hop culture or music?
You take it any way you want.
Oh, the most important instrument now in hip hop is the cell phone.
Okay.
The cell phone. That's the most important instrument in hip hop right now, is the cell phone.
Okay. Who are your top 5 people in the culture that were not rappers?
Oh, who were not rappers? Everybody that I'm going to mention is rapped on something. And these guys are the top 5. I mean, you could say Leo Cohen is one.
Okay.
Russell Simmons is another. Puff Daddy is another. P. Diddy. These people I'm mentioning are people who changed the culture, the face of it. Suge Knight is another one. And who did you ask? You asked me for 5 people. How many people did I give you so far? I gave you 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sylvia Rome is another one.
I love it. I ask those questions because everybody, like I said, mainstream only takes about the rapper. They don't talk about the dancer, the fashion person, the business person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
No, I would talk about that, but it would take too long to try to answer.
So you come back, and we had that conversation, or maybe I can have it on your show.
Let's do that. That'll be good. That'll be a good look. Yep.
Let's do that. Kool Herc or Grandmaster Flowers?
Herc. I have to say Herc. I know Herc, so I'll say Herc.
Okay. Shout out to Kool Herc. Shout out to the memory of Grandmaster Flowers. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Who are the GOATs when it comes to hip hop groups? Because we always say individuals. Who are the GOAT hip hop groups?
Wow. Okay. My goats. It's a short list. Not too many. Hip hop groups. It's Wu-Tang, Public Enemy, Run DMC, Outkast, and did I mention? Yeah, I think that's it, right?
That's
And
4?
no, and I said, what did I say? I said Public
Wu-Tang,
Enemy, right?
Public Enemy, Run DMC, and Outkast.
Oh, and NWA.
NWA.
That's correct.
That is dope. I believe Brooklyn represents hip hop the best because they were able to take their borough all over the world. I believe the identity of hip hop has always been Harlem because everybody wanted to be AZ and all them. What is the long lasting legacy of Long Island and how did it shape hip hop?
Well, Public Enemy said Strong Island got them wildin', right? Public Enemy actually brought Long Island to the forefront. I mean, look at the groups that you're mentioning. You talk about De La Soul and how they changed the whole culture of hip hop, their sound, part of the native tongues. You talk about EPMD, straight from Brentwood, Long Island, and their whole clique was straight hip hop. Even though some of their members weren't from Long Island, but Def Squad, Hit Squad, they were all derived from EPMD. Talk about Rakim. I mean, I don't even gotta say his name. You're extremely popular when you only have one name, like like Cher, like Rakim, like Puff. People say one name. You are the GOAT. Facts. So Rakim changed the culture when it came to lyrics, metaphor on songs, everything else, because how many rappers duplicated Rakim's, not his style, but how he penned and used metaphor to express himself in songs, Before Rakim, there wasn't that, right? So yeah, Long Island with Public Enemy and all those other groups, their legacy is solidified as it relates to what they contributed to the music. Because not only were they innovative, they changed the face of the culture. Public Enemy came out, everybody was wearing gold ropes and dressing like Run DMC and everybody from Queens. When Chuck and them came out, people took the rope chains off. They wore African medallions. They spoke of Black Power. People became Muslim. I can't even tell you how many people became Muslim after Public Enemy came out. They had pride in their community. They had a hatred for injustice. That changes the culture as a whole, because then you got groups, you got people like Common, people like Paris, people, all these groups that came after Public Enemy speaking the same thing because they changed the face of the game.
Facts.
And it's all Long Island people.
Facts. I got 3 more questions and then we're gonna go off. And It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. This is amazing. I appreciate you. My next question is kind of sophisticated because I believe you're a sophisticated man and you have a lot of abundance of knowledge with you. So I want to get a rapid fire answer from you. When the 5% nation disappeared from mainstream hip hop, did hip hop fall off? Hip hop music. When it comes to the messaging or
Hip hop's consciousness fell off. Yeah.
Okay.
Hip hop as a business was always supported by the corporations. So it wasn't going to fall off because it was making too much money at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But consciousness fell off immensely, yeah, because then it became, Versace. I dub it the Versace era, where everybody, thought about what they wore, how much money they spent, it's sort of like how life was culturally overall between the 70s and the 80s. In the 80s, people spoke of, wealth, and they spoke of prosperity, whether you were white or black, Spanish or Asian, whatever it was, you spoke of prosperity in the 80s because the 80s had Wall Street. The 80s had people making a lot of money, blah, 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 right? But before that, it wasn't that kind of energy. Everybody was still trying to find themselves. And they spoke of it was more culturally based in the 70s. It's the same energy as when the 5% Nation was not prevalent in the music as it was, a decade before, and then everything changed from that. Keep in mind something. We went from rope chains to Adidas to wear leather tracksuits to now dressing down, wearing African medallions, speaking Black Power, to now wearing $400 and $500 suits, shirts, boats, yachts. Keep it 100 strippers. This is what we're doing, right? So there was a cultural shift in that during that time, and it had a lot to do with the intellect and that energy leaving the culture.
Okay. So second to last question. What is the responsibility of the hip hop media today when the foundation of it was taking the regions and bringing them together? While you think about that, let me just put it to you like this. Video Music Box, MTV Raps, Rap City, Pump It Up. Shout out to Sister D Barnes. In Canada, you had Much Music's Rap City, which was different than the BET Rap City.
Right.
So that's just North America I'm talking about, y'all, right? And when we look at what was it, Hot Tracks? That was another one, right?
Hot Tracks, yeah.
Yeah, BET had Teen Summit, Video Soul. It may not all just be hip hop, but that hip hop media brought the regions.
Yeah, 106 in Park. Yeah.
It brought the regions together, and it solidified the fact that not only is our people or our culture, our generations making statements to change the world, it put us in a position of power. What is the responsibility of the media today to not forget how powerful it was to bring the world together under a unified cultural identity, not just a media identity?
Well, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard for that to happen today. But they need to think in terms of trying to make continuous growth in the music business, in the culture itself. It needs to be about continuous growth and continuing focus on making this culture everlasting. You can't necessarily recreate what transpired before, because that was like lightning in a bottle. Everybody at the time, keep in mind the landscape of the business then was everything changed every couple days. You had rap artists coming out, you had fashion changing, you had the hip hop dollar growing immensely. MTV Raps was responsible for the hip hop dollar growing from doing videos for $30,000 to doing them for $1.3 million. That happened because of MTV Raps. Bill Clinton was elected because powerful people in entertainment, primarily the hip hop culture, helped elect Bill Clinton. And they did that because of the exposure from MTV Raps. So you gotta understand that the culture shift happened during this time, and lightning in a bottle and everything was moving, very progressive. It's not necessarily like that now because it's not concentrated. It's sort of like everybody is MTV Raps. Everybody can be 106 in Park. Everybody can do this. Everybody can do that. And it's diluted like a motherfucker. It's extremely diluted because everybody can't be that. But they have the means, the equipment via the cell phone or whatever, technology has gotten to a place where everybody can just do it. Just like making songs. You can make songs on your tour bus with a few pieces of equipment. And these are high quality songs. They're not like when I took that box to see the Infinity Machine or Disco Twins and I played it's not that kind of quality. It's official. So you got to understand that, it's difficult for any media outlet to actually not, try to create what transpired, but more importantly, to support the culture when everybody's doing the same thing. It's sort of like if there were 12 McDonald's that open up on the same street, 11 of these McDonald's are not going to really make a lot of money. They're gonna all gravitate to one. Maybe it's based on location. Maybe it's based on who works it. What they sell. What their price points. It's just different. But as it relates to the responsibility, everybody that does media on any level, they have to try to understand that it's about whatever they do at this point. It's about sustaining the culture and making sure the culture continues to grow in a positive way.
That's a dope message. Throwaway question before we end. How did you like being on the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast, and would you recommend us to anybody else?
The Heritage Hip Hop Podcast is dope, and I'm recommending it to everybody that I see. Salute to Jersey. Massive respect to you, bro. I respect you, man. You know what I mean? 7 years is a long time. Don't play, man. The Heritage Podcast, you check it out on all social media. You know what I mean? Facebook, YouTube. We doing it, man. IG is not a game because you know what? This brother right here got some sense, man. You know what I'm saying? So you should rock with him. You know what I mean? Because he's official. I'm saying he official. That means he official, man. Salute to you, brother. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
I appreciate that. And then we get to the last question. This is the most important question of the first interview. So thank you to everybody who stuck with us. Thank you. This has been amazing for me because I'm getting to talk to one of my heroes when it comes to hip hop. Ralph McDaniels. We can talk about Chris Thomas, D Barnes. You got to talk about Fat Five Freddy, T Money, Ed Lover, Dr. Dre. Listen, bro, for real. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
No doubt, bro.
And the last question is this. Like I said, the most important question of the first interview. It means you get different questions if you come back, by the way. But,
okay, there you go.
But the most important question is this. 500 years from now, when they go into the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, T Money is going to be there as a hologram. Somebody's going to push a red button on the wall. Your hologram is going to pop out. And then they're going to actually hear your story, see what you've done in hip hop, and actually get inspired by your story. So the most important question is, wow, let me ask this the right way. The most important question to ask is, what is the legacy you leave behind that made the world better because you did hip hop?
I'm a really simple guy, man. I'm a simple dude from Long Island, probably from a place that half the 5 boroughs know nothing about. Westbury, Long Island. Real simple. And I truly want my legacy to be of peace. Whenever anyone thinks of me, I want them to say, T Money was a really cool guy. He loved the culture immensely. He was talented, and he did everything to support the hip hop culture and music and the artists. And he was gracious, and he deserves all the respect.
May the Most High bless you, and may the Most High bless everybody out there watching. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to heritagehiphop.com. Check out our merch. Donate $ Heritage Hip Hop for Cash App. But most importantly, don't only subscribe to the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast, subscribe to the T Money Podcast and get some of these jewels that he gave not only to me, but to all of us. Because at the end of the day, when our griots leave us, our library of knowledge leaves with them. So let's do all we can to not only uphold the knowledge, but pass it on and appreciate it as new generations come to tell our stories and forge the books that's going to be their stories in the years and generations to come. This is Forever Heritage Hip Hop with T Money, and we say peace.
Peace, love, and hair grease. We out, baby. See you later, man.
Real hip hop. Real hip hop. We here. Real hip hop.